Guys, it's finally here. House Money, my first official podcast. I've been waiting a while to do this. Y'all seen some clips of me on some podcasts doing other things, but this is now my own official podcast with College Sports Company Productions. Basically, this podcast is House Money. And what House Money means to me, what it means personally, there's a deeper meaning behind it. It's just not a nickname that I came up with or a thought in my head. I was this sounds good. It has a deep meaning. It's one of the most memorable moments in my career. It's what started my social media career. When we were younger, we started a series with Overtime, and my dad had a big speech after we beat Mikey Williams and Trey Parker, some of the biggest names on the internet, and he talked about playing with house money. And house money basically is when you win something or you have nothing to lose at all, and you put that to the side. Like if you win a lot of money, you put that money that you won to the side, and whatever you play with now, it's house money. You win a lot, you're up. If you lose, it doesn't matter because you're playing with house money. And that's kind of been our life motto. The way I've worked is I've worked so hard, and we deserve to be here, and there's a lot of other things to go into it, but I'm playing with house money. And when you play with house money, it's a lot of freedom. You don't worry about messing up. You have this ultimate confidence about yourself that just makes you feel unstoppable, and it's the reason why me, as a 5'11", short, non-athletic, can't dunk basketball player, is now playing in the SEC and one of the top 5 freshmen in the SEC and performing at this level. So yeah, that is what house money means to me, and yeah, it's going to be great. I'm so glad y'all are a part of it and tuned in to one of the first episodes. So we have nothing else to say but get into our first guest. One of the biggest names of social media, really doesn't need any introduction, but his name is Gary Vaynerchuk.
Like when I was a kid and tired mentally, physically, we didn't have the word burnt out. It's great that we're giving grace to mental, moments and things like that. On the flip side, it does create the vulnerability of entitlement or being a little softer. My whole life, I wish I had your athletic talents. And then when I got older, I was like, oh shit, being a businessman's awesome because, I just turned 50 and I think I'm going into my prime. If I was a basketball player, I'd be retired for 13, 15 years.
Hey guys, welcome to House Money, a College Sport Company production with me, your host, Eli Ellis. For our first guest, no need to have any introduction, but we're going to do it anyways. Gary Vaynerchuk, one of the biggest in content machine business, and honestly, one of my biggest motivations and probably inspiration I've had growing up as a businessman myself. Gary, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Eli. Pleasure, man. Proud of you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. As y'all may not know, I'm part of Gary Vaynerchuk's agency, VaynerMedia. It's been a dream working with them. But first, Gary, I just want to get kind of into your mind, like what you're thinking, your thoughts on some stuff. And I've had some questions I've been wanting to ask for, honestly, years now. I've been listening to you since I was probably 10 years old. My dad always had you on in the truck, right into workouts, practices, meetings, anything like that. So I've been tuned in for quite a while, so it's crazy to actually have you on here on my first official podcast. So I really appreciate you. But first question I kind of want to ask you, is if you could sit down with 20-year-old Gary V, what would you warn him about? But what would you warn him about, but not motivate him about?
Yeah, I mean,
if that makes sense.
It makes a ton of sense. I think the 20-year-old me had a lot figured out in hindsight. Like I was very intuitive. I had my mind right. I had great parenting. There was a lot of things going in my favor. I think the biggest things I would have warned that kid about is there was 2 things that he might do wrong, or when he's 50, he'll know that he would have wanted done differently. One is from 20, Eli, you'll appreciate this because I know how hard you work at your game, which is why Vayner Sports is so humbled to have you in our world. I literally worked from 22 to 30, like every single minute of my life. Like my dad had a liquor store. I was there at 7, 8 in the morning. I left at 9, 10 at night. I did that 6 or 7 days a week. Saturday was the busiest day of the week in the store. So that, my weekends were only on Sundays, and that only really was during football season because of my beloved Jets. Otherwise, I would work those two during the off season. And, I could have definitely taken 2 weeks vacation every one of those years, split it up into 2 or 3 trips, hung out with my high school and college friends, enjoyed forget about smelling the roses, maybe sniffing for a second a rose petal in that decade would have made sense. So that's number one. Number two, I talk about this a lot now, candor. I think all of the things that I've struggled with is, Gary Vee, as you know, because you've been listening to him since you were a kid, really good at shooting it straight. I think Gary Vaynerchuk in real life in his 20s, 30s, and well into his mid 40s, struggled with telling people that he cared about exactly how he felt as a boss and even in relationships. And so I would have told him, like, listen, kid, you're Superman. You know it now, because I did at 20. Like, listen, I see this in you, by the way, which is why we also recruited you. Like, some kids just have confidence in whatever it is. You have so much confidence in your game. Like, I often, I envy your game in basketball. I love hacking in basketball. And, like, I always talk about, like, as a businessman, I want to take the last shot in the game. You've done that famously, obviously, in some overtime clips. That takes a level of confidence. My son's 13, he hoops. Like, the thing I'm most proud about is he's not scared. Like, I've already seen him 3 of his last 10 games take a shot with 30 seconds to go in a tight game. Whether he made them or not, like, meant everything to me, because you know this, so many people fear that moment.
He took them.
He took them. And I feel like at 20, just like you feel about your game, me as a businessman and as a human, I felt like Superman, my kryptonite was if I liked you, let alone loved you, I struggled to shoot it fully straight. And I continue to work on that. And those would have been the 2 things that smell some roses. And this is your big watch out. You're going to have to develop the ability to hurt people's feelings or scare them in the micro moment to make the macro work out. Get to practicing, which is what I've done over the last 5 to 6 years, and it's helped me a lot professionally and personally.
Yeah, so you're saying, like, just be able to, like, say it to them straight. Like, I feel like I struggle with that too, to be honest, because you don't want to hurt people's feelings, but you also want to see them be better. And sometimes they just get caught up in the way of that.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Especially as a basketball player. No, good.
For sure. You for teammates, I get that. Like, for me, I was always the boss. So, and I'm all about positivity and optimism, and we can. And I just early on, even later on, in the middle of my career, I just thought it was almost overconfidence. I thought that I could navigate the situations in a different way than having those micro moments of, pain. And, in hindsight, there's really no substitute for kind candor, and I continue to work on that.
Yeah, for sure. That kind of follows into my next question of, like, have you ever had to unlearn the part of, like, the I don't give a fuck mentality because it started to cost you something, or has it always been like, hey, I really don't care, like, I really don't give a fuck about your feelings?
My I don't give a fuck, mentality is not that I don't give a fuck about people's feelings. In fact, my empathy and sympathy and compassion is the issue of what we just talked about. My I don't give a fuck is actually, again, this is why I love chopping up with you, is more like an athlete. Like, I don't give a fuck to be the player on the road. It's funny, as a Knicks fan, you may know, I'm a big Knicks fan.
Big Knicks fan, yeah.
As you know, people love to come to the Garden and be a villain, right? Jordan, Reggie Miller, Earl of Pearl Monroe for the OGs, more recently, Halliburton, Trae Young. Like, my give a fuck is a little bit more like the villain on the road. Like, why on earth would I give a fuck about your booing me when I'm trying to beat you? Or when you're just someone in the, even, by the way, even getting booed at home, right? By the way, my beloved Knicks are probably getting booed at home right now. As we're talking, we're getting blown out by Dallas. We're in a real slump. You know, I would also be good with my own home team booing me, because I understand, like, you're frustrated I'm not winning, but like, I can't take your booing in. I've got to go next play. I got to chip away at closing the gap on our deficit. As a human and as a businessman, I'm just unable to overvalue the crowd's booing. That's my don't give a f.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's has something to play with social media too, because some people aren't willing to play the villain in reality, because in social media, the villain gets a lot of views, gets a lot of attention. For instance, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, they're able to play that villain role of, hey, we're going to make you guys so mad, but at the end of the day, we're making so much money, we don't give a. And yeah, I think some people, I know for myself,
there's some nuance.
I feel like I know who I am as a person, to where like I'm able to, when you step on the court, away team, sometimes even home team, you're going to be the villain. But if you're able to be okay with being the villain, when you're the superhero or you're the top guy, you take that with kind of a little bit of like being humble in a sense.
I think that's right. A couple things there. I think intent matters for the last 5 minutes that we talked about. So I would say with Jake and Logan, I've known them from the beginning, their intent is to act the part as a business marketing engine.
For sure.
Like, they are dramatically sweeter kids in real life than what they play on social. Mine's different. I am exactly who I am, both in social and off social. My villainness comes from being willing to be misunderstood in the short term, because I know I see things and feel things earlier than Gen Pop.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You kind of talked about it a little bit. You wish you would have went back and like when your 20-year-old self, you would have had some vacations, stuff like that. Or kind of, next question is going to like kind of play back on that. I feel like I deal with that too, because I know there's a short window. Like with NIL, high school, college basketball, you have this short space to be able to make as much money as possible and take advantage of your opportunities. But the kind of question I'm going to is when you're burnt out, in my position, sometimes I'm in a position where you're burnt out but can't stop. How do you kind of reset or rest your mind?
There's a lot there. So a couple things. When I was building, I was fortunate. My whole life, I wish I had your athletic talents. And then when I got older, I was like, oh shit, being a businessman's awesome, because, you know, I just turned 50 and I think I'm going into my prime. You know, if I was a basketball player, I'd be retired for 13, 15 years, right? So, you know, for you, you're right. And you know exactly what kind of personality you are. You are a modern sensation and you want to maximize all your things. Look, I think, to be very transparent, I actually love what's going on with you, because I think people really are, I'm loving that people are surprised on how your talents translates to the college game. For me, I think people don't understand what's going on in the overtime league. And I actually think like there was no confusion to me that this was going to happen. And so I don't know exactly, and you know this, like the next level is a whole nother animal, right? And, you know, how you think about that, you know, fully. But what I would say is this. I literally can't communicate properly, and I'm a good communicator, how I literally did nothing but worked every minute. So if I took 20% less work, I would still be outworking almost every person right now that's in this age. So for you, look, if you're actually, like when I was a kid and tired mentally, physically, we didn't have the word burnt out. We weren't even thinking about that. So like, you guys now have this context. There's some great things with that, right? Because you actually, it's great that we're giving grace to mental, you know, moments and things like that. On the flip side, it does create the vulnerability of entitlement or being a little softer than what's really in your soul. I feel like you would be me and I would be you if we lived and grew up in those different eras. So here's what I would say, a couple things. You're never gonna be, how old are you now? You like 18? What is it?
20. Just turned 20.
20, right? Yeah. So you're never gonna be 20 again. So there,
sure.
you want to give yourself a little breathing room for 20 behavior, right? You're still a kid, like a little silliness, whatever dynamics you have with like relationships and things of that nature, that enjoyment. But at the same token, this, you've been blessed. And if you don't squeeze the fuck out of your blessings, at 30, you're going to regret it. So at 30, you're going to regret not squeezing the fuck out of this. And then at 30, you also may regret not having a little bit of joy with this, which is why we always talk about finding the middle, all that. But I think ultimately, and this is funny saying it to an athlete, because I've always done this as an entrepreneur, I listen to my body. I'm very good at listening to my body and to my mind. And so what I would say is, don't let anybody else, not a coach, not a parent, not a mentor, Gary V, not society, let you get caught up in like what you should be doing. Listen to your body and listen to your mind to know like what's the right thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're very alike in that sense of like working nonstop. I feel like off days, I can't really take off days because it just feels like I'm being lazy, or it feels like I need to do something.
Look what we're doing right now, right? It's 6:30 p.m. Eastern on MLK Day. Like you could be like playing video games, you could be like watching film, you could be just watching ball, you could be like hanging out, you could be dating, like you're doing a podcast, building another world for yourself. Like I know who you are because we've been watching you for a long time too, and I get it. And what I would say is this, again, for the young and ambitious, like you don't need to be chilling all the time, life balance, all that. You actually have to go hard if you're actually ambitious. I just say, I just would argue I went 100 and 0, and I think 97 and 3 would have been just fine. 95 would have been just fine. 90 and 10 might have not been fine for how big of an empire I want to build, but there were some points left on the board for me.
Yeah. And I'd rather, the way I'm wired, I'd rather regret not taking time off than regret not working harder.
Me too.
That's just, that's how I am.
I'm 50 and I feel that.
Yeah.
Like I'm here on this podcast with you. Go ahead.
Do you remember when you came and did the business convention in OT Arena? So it's really, really funny. Actually, that day you were walking, I didn't even, no idea you were there, but Shaq walked through because he was on it. Shaq walked through. I'm like, why is Shaq here? Well, they're like, Gary V's speaking in the arena. I said, what? They're like, yeah, you have class. I said, no. I left class. I skipped all my classes and sat at the top of the arena and listened to the whole convention when you had I think it was Shaq and you had somebody else on, or it might have just been Shaq. But I listened to that, and it was awesome. So that was like, that kind of leads to my next question of like business side of you've had a lot of successes. But what do you think are your biggest failures in business?
The things I said no to. I passed on Uber in the angel round, missed out on $500 million. That was bad. There's been conferences and kind of like off sites where I couldn't make it work because I had a responsibility. I'm sure that would have led to great relationships. This is funny, again, back to making this about ball. Like, the biggest misses in your career were the shots you didn't take versus, right? And so, same, I think, as me. Like, I think it's the things I said no to, things that I missed. Poppy, Liquid Death I invested in, but I could have gotten harder. Like, there's just so many things.
Where do you think the balance is between, like, being able to figure out what's hey, no, this was a bad idea, and saying, go all in?
I think it's hard. It's all intuition. It's all subjective. Like, for every no, I have yes to Facebook and yes to Twitter and yes to Tumblr and yes to Venmo and yes to Snapchat. And I have plenty of wins. It's just like, again, it's like, I hate him because I'm a Knicks fan, but there's that Jordan commercial, right? Where he's like, I missed 4,000 shots from the 297 game winners. Like, I think for me, that's where my losses are.
The last question I got for you, based off just this podcast and having you on here, is like, what are 3 things you think I should start doing now to grow this progress and to grow my social audience?
scaled content. Right now I'm on a high kick with my own team, and I was the inventor of volume content, but I'm like more people, AI, process, mentality, more content. So Eli, like the more clips, like this podcast we just did, you need 13, 14, 27, 39 clips for Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube Shorts.
So clips like social media, that would be the main focus?
That is definitely one. I think, you going on podcasts to promote the podcast. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another one, getting attention from other places and then clipping that where you're promoting the podcast. So I think, look, social media has the attention. You know this. You're one of the people most affected in the world by this. Like Eli coming up, 30 years ago when I was coming up, you don't have what you have now without social media. You were birthed your brand through that, and so you understand it. I would just say more. It's like this. It's like if one of your homies, who's not going to be a real basketball player, but was like, yo, bro, how do I get better at basketball? Like, I want a better jump shot. You're like, go to the gym to shoot.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, once you get the foundational form down, it's like, I would tell you no different than, I don't know your whole regimen, but like, I see, again, I'll bring him up because I love giving him flowers. My son, by the time he turned 13, has shot more basketballs than I've shot in my life times 5. No wonder he's got a much better jumper than I have. It's reps. And so you need content. You want this podcast to do well? Extra handles, not just your handle, not just the podcast handle. Eli Ellis podcast, at Eli Ellis podcast clips. Like just clips, more content, more platforms, different platforms, and getting quote unquote good at it too. It's not just reps. You gotta have good form, right? Like if somebody takes a bunch of shots underhand, that's also not gonna work. So it's the form. So you gotta be good at the clips, and then you gotta make the clips. That's the answer to the question, my man.
Are you using any AI for any of this, like clipping up stuff? I've seen some of it. You mentioned AI. What kind of stuff are you using to be able to clip stuff, or even really AI in general that's helping y'all?
I mean, most of the stuff that I'm doing personally is within Sora, within Gemini, within ChatGPT. But we're working on a platform for ourselves on this that is being vibe coded by one of our media people, because now coding itself is like this. So it's just like, that's like oxygen. That's just coming.
All of it, yeah.
Anyway, I apologize.
For sure.
I've gone over here. I got to run.
No, you're good, man. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
I'll see you soon. I can't wait to share a meal.
Yes, sir. Gary, thank you so much for being the first guest here on House Money. I really appreciate your time. You've taught me a lot along the way.